Investments Committee. The matter in question that the County Public Investment and Special Funds Committee sought answers from the County Government of Isiolo is in regards to the Auditor General's report on the Isiolo County Bursary Fund, the Isiolo County Emergency Fund, and the Isiolo County Youth, Women, and People with Disability Fund for the year 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. This invite was done on the 28th of May 2024. The motion further states that whereas that the county government of Isiolo failed to honor 5 invitations on diverse dates between the 21st of March 2023 to the 8th of March 2023 by the County Public Accounts Committee to respond to queries raised by the Auditor General. There is a matter of concern following the numerous incidences of failure or refusal by the county governor and the government of the Isiolo County to honor invitations as well as summons by the CPIC Committee of the Senate. The Senator for Isiolo, having adduced the numerous dates as well as the matter that the county government was supposed to come and respond to various committees of the Senate, wants the House to resolve that pursuant to Article 228, subsection 4 and 5 of the Constitution, the control of budget should not authorize any withdrawal of the public funds by the county government of Isiolo until the governor has responded to the issues raised in the summons to the satisfaction of the Senate. And 2, that the National Treasury, pursuant to Article 225 of the Constitution and Section 96 of the Public Finance Management Act, stops forthwith the transfer of funds to the county government of Isiolo. This morning, the senators are also set to consider a motion by the Senator for Nyeri County, Senator Wahome Wamatenga. This motion pertains addressing the challenge of power purchase agreement renewals and electricity supply in Kenya. Allow me to take you through this motion by the Senator for Nyeri County, who has stated that aware that on the 29th of March 2021, a presidential task force was formed to review the power purchase agreements between the government and the independent power producers, during which a moratorium was imposed on Kenya Power and Lighting Company KPLC, preventing KPLC from signing new agreements or renewing existing ones with the independent power producers, which moratorium was lifted by the cabinet on the 23rd of March 2023, and further aware that the National Assembly via a motion adopted on the 19th of April 2023 placed a moratorium restricting KPLC from further signing and renewing power purchase agreements with independent power producers, popularly known as IPPs, pending a report of inquiry by the Departmental Committee on Matters Energy, and consequently the House resolution on the report concerned that Kenya imports 17% of electricity from the neighboring countries, and that Kenya faces a challenge as the growing demand for electricity is conflicted with the lengthy process of developing power plants, which usually takes between 6 to 10 years from the consumption of generation, leading to electricity shortage and load shedding, which impedes the economic growth. And further cognizant that the resolution of the Senate on the 28th of February on a motion by the Standing Committee on Matters Energy on the inquiry into the high cost of electricity in the country called upon the Ministry of Energy to, among others, create a one-stop IPP office that comprises of all stakeholders required for approval of power plants, and that the ministry, through KPLC and the independent power producers, renegotiate the current power purchasing agreements within 12 months of the adoption of the report. Now, therefore, notwithstanding the resolution of the National Assembly that imposed a moratorium on Kenya Power, whose timeline has lapsed, the Senate, in order to cushion Kenyans from the high cost of electricity, resolves that the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and the Kenya Power and Lighting Company be allowed to enter into a new purchasing agreements or renew existing power purchasing agreements with the independent power producers. And that secondly, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, fast-tracks the acquisition of necessary licenses required by the independent power producers with a valid power purchase agreement for setting up power plants. The quorum has been achieved, our dear viewers. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast. Enjoy your viewing.
We do have quorum now, so we'll proceed with today's business. Clerk, please proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, motion. Report of the Select Committee on County Public Accounts on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of West Pokot County Assembly for the financial year 2018-2019, and reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Isiolo, Kiambu, Kitui, Marsabit, Narok, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, and Murang'a County Assemblies for the financial year 2019-2020, resumption of debate.
Honorable Senator Moses Kajwang. We'll defer that motion and proceed to order number 9.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on a petition to the Senate by residents of Siani area, Nyamira County, regarding destruction of 41 hectares of Siani wetland, LR number, North Mugirango, Magwanga, 2/403.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the following motion, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the petition to the Senate by residents of Siani area, Nyamira County, regarding destruction of 41 hectares of Siani wetland, LR number North Mugirango, stroke Magangwa 2, stroke 403, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources at its sitting held on 14th June 2024 adopted its report on the petition by the Siani residents on the destruction of 41 hectare Siani wetland, LR number Mugirango, North Mugirango stroke Magwanga 2, stroke 403, and tabled it in the Senate on Tuesday, the 23rd July 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, at a sitting of the Senate held on Tuesday, 13 July 2023, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate reported to the Senate that a petition had been submitted through the clerk by the Siani residents of Misambi sub-location in Nyamira County concerning the degradation of the Siani wetland brought on by the activities of the Kenya Prisons Services, KPS, a section of the community members through cultivation and construction of structures and a primary school built on this land. Pursuant to Standing Order 238-1 and the fourth schedule to the standing orders of the Senate, the petition was committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee proceeded to seek for responses from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, and the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration to address the issues raised in the petition. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a background in brief of the for the Honorable Senators to understand what were the the contents of the petition. One, Siani wetland is a community land situated in Misambi sub-location in Nyamira County that had been set aside for grazing and registered as a common grazing area under Gusii County Council and is a major water catchment area in the region that serves as a source of fresh and clean water for the community. However, the water sources have now been polluted with waste material due to human activities pursuing great risk to the residents. Two, degradation of the wetland has been occurring through activities of the Kenya Prison Service for the last 14 years, a section of the community members through cultivation and construction structures and a primary school built on this land. Three, the destruction of Siani wetland was brought to the attention of the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, Water Resources Management Authority, WARMA, and the Ministry of Environment in 2010. NEMA subsequently gave orders for the stoppage of construction on the land and issued an environmental registration order in the same year. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee, following extensive scrutiny, made the following observations in line with the prayers of the petitioners as follows. One, prayer one, the committee stops the destruction of the wetland and ensures that the ecosystem is conserved and preserved for future generations. The committee observation one, the committee observed that there were efforts by the Kenya Prison Service geared towards restoration and conservation through protection of water spring, tree nurseries, afforestation programs, donation of tree seedlings, promotion of fruit farming and peace keeping missions as detailed in the ministry's submission. 2, the committee observed that Nyamira prison occupies an area that is fragile and prone to environmental distractions. Consequently, the institutions has a duty to prevent further degradation and maintain the ecological and other functions of the wetland as outlined in Regulation 14 of the Environmental Management and Coordination, Wetlands, Rivers, Banks, Lakes, Shores, and Sea Shores Management, Regulation 2009. To address this, the committee observed that there is need for development of comprehensive environmental program plan. This EMP should focus on preventing adverse environment impacts, mitigation, pollution, and ensuring compliance with environmental regulations. The plan should also aim to improve the current environmental conditions and support the long-term conservation and preservation of the wetland ecosystem, and hence collaboration with NEMA and other relevant stakeholders will be essential in achieving these goals. Mr. Speaker, sir, prayer 2. The wetland is protected from being subdivided by the National Land Commission and the county government of Nyamira through clear and correct boundaries and beacons put in place. Observation 1 on that prayer. Based on the submissions and evidence from the petitioners and respondents, the committee observed that there is significant concern about the potential subdivision of the wetland. The county government of Nyamira has not yet developed a physical development plan for the disputed land. The land boundaries were established by the county survey department, not by the prison's wardens, and there is ongoing encroachment by the community members and institutions. 2, given the sensitivity of the Siani wetland and its ecological importance, the committee observed the need for the caution before any further subdivision are considered. The conservation of the wetland should be a top priority for the county government, the Kenya Prison Service, and the local community, establishing clear and correct boundaries with proper public participation, essential to prevent further encroachment and to ensure protection and preservation of the wetland. Mr. Speaker, sir, prayer 3, that the Land, Environment and Natural Resources Committee directs NEMA to work with the community to restore the wetland and springs emanating from it to their original status through environmentally friendly activities. 1, the committee concurs with the petitioners that it is the responsibility of the EMCCF to ensure that NEMA develops and implements robust programs and plans that actively involves the community. This includes educating the community and KPS on the best land use practices and engaging them in environmentally friendly activities and promoting sustainable agricultural practices. 2, the committee supports the petitioner's call for NEMA to work closely with the community to restore the wetland and its springs to their original state, thus ensuring the long-term conservation and ecological balance. Enhanced collaboration among all stakeholders, including the county government of Nyamira, is crucial to the success of these initiatives. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee, having investigated the matter in accordance with its mandate under the Standing Order 228-4 of the Senate Standing Orders, recommends that 1, the Kenya Prisons, in collaboration with NEMA and under the guidance of the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, develops and implements a comprehensive environmental plan, EMP, to prevent environmental degradation management waste effectively and promote sustainable activities within the prison's operations, ensuring compliance with all relevant environmental regulations and improve the current conditions of the wetland by 31st December 2024. 2, a moratorium on further subdivision of the wetland should be enforced by the county government of Nyamira until a comprehensive physical development is in place. The county government of Nyamira, in collaboration with the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, and the National Land Commission, should conduct a public participation exercise to establish clear and correct boundaries marked by beacons to prevent encroachment and ensure the protection of the wetland. This should be done by 31st December 2024. Further, the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development should begin the process of issuing ownership documents to the uncontested areas since most of the land has been surveyed. 3, NEMA, with support from Ministry of Environment and the County Government of Nyamira, is required to develop and implement programs to engage and educate the local community, the Kenya Prison Service staff, on the best land use practices, focusing on the environmentally friendly activities, sustainable agriculture, and the importance of wetland conservation through regular workshops, training sessions, and community meetings to foster collaboration and commitment to conservation efforts. 4, that NEMA shall lead efforts to restore the wetland and its springs to their original state, including the replanting indigenous trees, removing hazardous tree species, and implementing soil and conservation measures, with the county government of Nyamira and the Kenya Prison Service providing resources and the manpower, and the local community actively involved in the restoration activities. 5, NEMA, Ministry of Environment and the county government of Nyamira shall establish a monitoring and reporting framework to track the process of the conservation and restoration efforts, conducting regular site visit and assessment to ensure compliance with the ministry, the EMP and other conservation measures, and documenting and sharing results with all stakeholders, including the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources, to ensure transparency and accountability. 6, the Environment Lands Court expedites the resolution of the ongoing land disputes involving the Siani wetland. And the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and the Forestry works together with the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government to train and educate staff and wardens in the Nyamira prisons and on the best practices on matters environment conservation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
You're supposed to move and request any senator of your choice.
coming to this house to protect their environment. Mr. Speaker, the issue of environment has become a worldwide affair. It is very shocking and surprising to find that people want to do development in a riparian area and in a wetland. Mr. Speaker, the fact that it is a wetland means when the rains are at their highest, then it's likely to be inhabitable for human beings, or it's likely to be occupied by water, and therefore no more human development like construction cannot take place there because it will be destroyed at that particular moment. And therefore this land is best used for public use, first of all to preserve water and to keep the rivers downstream running. And secondly, ordinarily wetlands are riparian and they are under the control of the county. And again, though the public may have access, they know that is not land you may alienate further or you may subdivide for further human activity. And therefore, an effort to preserve environment is very important. This should serve an example to many other wetlands in Kenya and in many parts of the world. Mr. Speaker, every other part of the world, even in a dry area, you'll find wetlands. You'll find areas the water doesn't move. You'll find naturally constituted ponds or small lakes, if you may. And God had his own way of making sure that water is preserved in those areas so that animals and human beings, as they migrated, will find some water somewhere. And I'm sure many members here will bear witness that this is very common, even in dry lands. And it is even more important in a wetland like Kisii, whereby even in the event rains or there's a drought in the country, you will find this is a very important water conservation area, forest conservation area, with natural habitation and natural trees growing in that particular area, and even certain animals surviving there, like pythons, and could even be a tourist attraction, despite the dangers it may cause to other animals and to humans. But a wetland particularly is very important, and this one is so large, it's 41 kilometers, it's quite substantial, and therefore for preservation of environment is important. Mr. Speaker, this is a sort of responsibility we expect Kenyans to have for their country, what the people of Nyamira did, that wherever there is land to be preserved, it is not upon the human activity around the area to cover up the wetland, put more soil into it, like as it has happened in many parts of the country we know. And Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of making regulations in this area in the Committee of Delegated Legislation. Warma brought regulations to this effect. And Mr. Speaker, it got the committee and Senate thinking how best they can be preserved with the best regulations and public participation to make sure that the public is aware. And Mr. Speaker, the public participation has really been abused. A lot of times, ideas come from the public and they are never adapted into anything. They are never adapted into making of law. They are never taken into consideration. And I want to reiterate, the views from public could very be helpful to lawmaking because there are quite a number of specialists out there who may not be in this house in certain areas, and their input in public participation is very, very important. And therefore, we insisted that wherever you are dealing with riparian areas or wetlands, then public participation is very important. It is surprising to find the same public then comes and settled in this wet area, and when there are floods, the same public now has to be removed at a public expense from that same particular area, and even deaths will happen and will ensue quite unnecessarily. And therefore, governments, county government and national government, has to take precautions much earlier. And I like the way even the matter has gone to court, and even that particular matter has to be settled, the way the committee has encouraged public participation, and the way the committee has encouraged a bipartisan approach by the people, including government institutions, incidental into this area. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this area should be preserved even by KWS to make sure that the wildlife in that particular place can be, preserved even for purposes of natural consequences and natural resources. And now that climate has changed in the world, and we are trying to clean air through carbon credits, then this is one particular area you can even develop further and make sure it's thoroughly protected. The natural vegetation there preserved, vegetation which has been removed, added, grass allowed to grow, the animals which inhabit that place allowed to thrive, other than the land, although we know the challenges of land generally in Kisii, so that the land can be left for public use and that everyone would have access, but not for development or other human activity or agriculture. But again, as it has been reiterated by the committee, when it is dry season, then this is a particular area also where people can communally graze and should have a method of making sure that anyone with animals then could access the area, but in a controlled manner so that it doesn't end up being damaged and it is preserved for the future generations. Mr. Speaker, environment is one of the key issues in the world today. We have environmental law, which is supposed to preserve and manage the environment, but I think personal responsibility, of which is what has been lacking, Mr. Speaker, in our nation, is very, very important. Kenyans need to begin to own everything which is our heritage. They need to own the wetlands. We need to own the riparians. We need not to pollute them so that rivers can be clean for the purposes of the communities which live below the river. And it goes on to personal and responsibility and public responsibility so that every Kenyan is conscious and preserves environment for the future. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee for the good work it has done in helping resolve the issues relating to the people of Nyamira and this particular wetland, which is our constitutional duty to make sure that we resolve issues coming from the people of Kenya who we represent. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to also make a contribution on this motion. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I thank the Ministry, the Senate Committee on Environment for the good work they have done in this report. I support their recommendations. Indeed, it is good to protect the environment and to protect the work, the place where the people of Nyamira are living. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to raise two issues. The first one concerns the fact that the Kenya Prisons Department was mentioned here in this petition by the residents of Nyamira as being one of the people or one of the agencies that are polluting their natural environment. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is, for all of us who come from rural constituencies or rural counties, we know how critical and how important wetlands are, especially, Mr. Speaker, during the dry season, when there is no rain anywhere else. Everybody converges there because livestock must survive the difficult time until the rains come again. So, Mr. Speaker, it is sad to hear that the Kenya prisons is also part of the agencies that the complaints have been laid by the residents of Nyamira. Mr. Speaker, I think the comment I wanted to make on that is Kenya prisons across the country, including in Tana River County, they have taken a lot of land, Mr. Speaker, a lot of land. And Mr. Speaker, this land is taken from residents, is taken from counties, and it is gazetted without any public participation. So it is sad that they have gone even into wetlands, Mr. Speaker, like this petition has stated. Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County, for example, they have taken land, prime land, right in front of the road. And Mr. Speaker, the problem is, if you go to Hola, if you go to Minjila, they have taken sizable pieces of land. The problem is, we don't need so many jails. What we need are correctional facilities or places where we can train people to be good people, not places where we jail them. And Mr. Speaker, this land that is taken, sometimes it conflicts with the development aspects of the people. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the prisons department to really have self-questioning and see in some places where you don't need the land to return it back. For example, in this wetland, one of the best solutions that the prisons can give to the people of Nyamira, one of the best gifts they can give to them, is to surrender this land. Move from this place, go to another area where you are not going to be accused of polluting the environment. Mr. Speaker, when the residents are complaining, and we know that you took the land without any public participation.
Majority Leader, you may want to take your calls out of the chamber. May the Senator be heard in silence, please.
When we know that the people did not participate in alienating that land to the prisons department, they took it. And now the people are saying your activities and other human activities are encroaching on this land, and they are disturbing the environment of this area. Mr. Speaker, it is time they think about moving to other areas. Mr. Speaker, I also support the stand by the committee and the recommendation that the county government of Nyamira should issue a moratorium in terms of alienating any more land until a proper environmental plan is set out and implemented. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the county of Nyamira does not have an environmental plan for a wetland. This is a terrible thing that needs to be corrected. If the Senate committee has found that a whole county does not have an environmental plan for a wetland, I think, Mr. Speaker, this is a huge indictment on the county of Nyamira, and they ought to do something about it. Mr. Speaker, this moratorium should not stay forever. The county must come up with a plan. Even if it's a bad plan, that bad plan will give way to a good one when maybe a new governor comes. And that good one may give way to a better plan. And that better one may give to a best plan when new administrations come into place. But, Mr. Speaker, it is terrible that a whole county does not have a plan for a wetland. So I want to thank the Senate committee for pointing out this. And I hope the governor and his team in Nyamira are listening to the Senate today as we are talking about this report, that we as a nation, we are not happy to hear that a whole county does not have an environmental management plan for a wetland that is critical to people who are living within that area. So I am pleading with them to take it upon themselves and the CEC environment to work on this, not just to sit on a moratorium to stop people from alienating the land. Mr. Speaker, one of the things I wanted to mention is that we all know development and human development and the protection of environment always are in competition. Human habitation, how they use the land, is always in competition with environmental protection. When you want to keep the land undisturbed and it is pristine, it has problems when also development wants to be carried out. For example, it is possible to discover gold in a place which is environmentally supposed to be kept. But Mr. Speaker, we need to have a balance. And in particular, Mr. Speaker, I'm bringing to your attention that sometimes the agency called the Kenya Forest Service, sometimes they do things that don't make sense. For example, Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County, we have had human habitation along the Bangale area. And Bangale, Mr. Speaker, is an old settlement. It has been there for many years, all the way to Bultobanta as you go towards Garissa. This is an area that has been in settlement like for forever, Mr. Speaker. And people have lived there. It's a big town, and a lot of settlements are there. So if you go down all the way to Madogo, on your way to Garissa County, Kenya Forest Service, Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden have said this is a forest land. The forest land without public participation. And now, Mr. Speaker, there are very important donors who have come to Madogo and they cannot do. They want to alienate the land so that they can do something for the residents. The government itself, Mr. Speaker, was not aware when the Kenya Forest Service went to gazette a forest area. Mr. Speaker, we were with you in Bangale when the residents, through their member of parliament, were complaining that they cannot expand the land. In fact, the town itself, Mr. Speaker, has been put under forest. Mr. Speaker, this Kenya Forest Service, it needs to be more reasonable. You cannot come and declare a forest where people are living. You cannot come and say this is a forested area, and then you stop people from developing. People now cannot expand the town. People cannot even do planning of the town. Mr. Speaker, World Bank has given us some money so that we can properly urbanize our towns like Madogo, our towns like Bangal. Mr. Speaker, you find that agencies such as these, whom I call land grabbers, have really, really, really wronged the people of Tana River. And these people, Mr. Speaker, are not talking about wetlands like we are talking here in Nyamira County. These are not wetlands. These are areas which are already occupied by humans. These are not forests. Even when you stand, you are in town, someone says this is a forest. And they have put that notice after the people are already there. And there is no public participation. So, Mr. Speaker, I am also taking this opportunity to say, even though we have to preserve environment, there are areas that and agencies that must not misuse this whole blanket preservation of land to do things that are wrong to the people. Because the people were there before. So, Mr. Speaker, I have mentioned the Kenya Prisons Department, which was mentioned in this petition, that they have interfered with an environment that is supposed to be a pristine environment and reserved for as a wetland. But now I'm mentioning also the Kenya Forest Service, Mr. Speaker. Kenya Forest Service is being totally unfair to Tana River County. Totally unfair. You cannot go to villages where people are living. You cannot go to areas where towns are in existence, and then you gazette. You gazette. Even the county government is not aware. In the name of protecting the environment, it's not a wetland. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm taking this opportunity to also ask government agencies not to misuse these powers. Because what we know is that they come in the name of preservation of the forest. The next thing you will hear, those forests, the same forests have been alienated, Mr. Speaker, and people have been given those forests. Here in Nairobi, we know. In all these forested areas, we know that you are told this is Gong Forest, and so it's not available for alienation. But then later on, some important people come and take the land and they develop it. So Kenya Forest Service, we know your tricks and we know what you want to do in Tana River. We pray that you will desist and resist the temptation to rob the people of their land. And next time, when you want to gazette any land for whatever, you have to do public participation. You have to involve the county governments. Let this mentality of old times, when people could do anything in this country, like the other people are not shareholders, that must change, Mr. Speaker. And the people in those departments must change with the times. We changed into a new constitution, Mr. Speaker. And this new constitution, there's a lot of people who are in senior position that have not changed with a new constitution. People are still behaving like we are in the old constitution where they could do anything. Nowadays, Mr. Speaker, public participation is indeed a critical principle of governance, and we urge the Kenya Forest to do the same. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted to take this opportunity to also congratulate the nominee, and I hope the National Assembly will pass him. But the nominee, if he passes the test of the Committee on Appointments, Mr. Speaker, I hope he will sit down and look afresh, because he's our neighbor. He passes through that area, and he knows that Bangale is not a forest, it's a town. He knows that Madogo is not a forest, it's a town. We pray that Honorable Duale, when he gets into the ministry, if he is approved, that, Mr. Speaker, he will look at these problems afresh. Yes, let us conserve the environment, but let us also not give carte blanche to government departments to misuse those powers, to allocate lands that they don't need, to deprive people of their natural lands. So, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support this report, but I also pray that government departments will be sensitive to people's needs so that they don't misuse the name protection of the environment to deprive people of their natural heritage and the natural richness, which is the land where they occupy. So, Mr. Speaker, we thank the committee that worked on this report. We thank for all these recommendations, and we support them. But we also want the various departments in government to be sensitive before they go declaring places as forests, as happened in Tana River. And I hope the new minister will find it in himself to listen to the people of Tana River and revert some of those mistakes that were done under previous holders of that office. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support this report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Ogolda.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I supported this petition right from the word go. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that as Kenyans, we note that all this public land that we have in this country was acquired from the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, at the acquisition level and at the adjudication level, when these lands were being set aside, these lands were set aside for particular usage by the people of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, this particular Siani area was set aside as indicated in the petition for grazing and for community purposes, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I ask myself, when the people of Kenya are struggling with issues of land, and especially land that was set aside for public use, I continue to ask myself, where is the National Land Commission in this? Because, Honorable Speaker, in 2010, the people of Kenya spoke with one voice and indicated that they wanted public land to be managed differently. And Honorable Speaker, the National Land Commission is as a mandate of managing land that is public on behalf of the national government and on behalf of county governments. And this is where the management of Siani, which is a wetland and which is public land, should have been. So, Honorable Speaker, it is also ironical, as has been stated by my colleagues, that we have the government struggling with a lot of activities and dealing with aspects of climate change. But here in Siani, we have another government entity that is contributing to the destruction of a wetland, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, the issue of physical planning also comes in this petition. In physical planning, Honorable Speaker, the sector or the Department of Land and the county government should have foreseen that as populations rise, Honorable Speaker, there's a need to review some of these physical plans. That we have this wetland, but we equally have populations growing. What then should happen? Honorable Speaker, development plans and physical plans are reviewed over a period of time, specifically 10-year plan. And that is why I say the county government of Nyamira should have foreseen that as population increase, they needed a primary school. The prison also probably, as indicated, needed some space. But this must be brought in a harmonized plan that leave people of Siani living peacefully. Honorable Speaker, in the petition, we see that now there's an interference with the source of fresh water and clean water for these people. Honorable Speaker, we all know that water is a basic need. Water is a source of livelihood. We have often seen when our communities lack water, we see a lot of insecurity because people are struggling for the water. People struggle to get water for their cattle. And this always brings an aspect of insecurity. And that is why we must preserve these sources of water for both domestic use and for the grazing field. Honorable Speaker, as I support this petition, I want to say that the remaining parcel of land must be set aside, must be ring-fenced, must be kept for the community, for their grazing as it was intended initially. Honorable Speaker, as I support this petition, I also want to ask the county government of Nyamira that they must enhance their restoration programs for the Siani area, that this wetland must be preserved, Honorable Speaker. We can now see that the Kenya Prison Services has come in and they have put buildings, some of them are shanties, and we can see a lot of pollution on the streams around the Siani area, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, with pollution, we know that there are going to be health issues. So it is important that the county government enhances their programs. Honorable Speaker, as I support this, it is also pathetic that the Kenya Prison Services are leading in the degradation of this wetland. A primary school has also been built, but now that this primary school has been built, and for the people of Siani, Honorable Speaker, the Fiscal Planning Department of Nyamira County must move ahead to protect all the other areas. Honorable Speaker, as I indicated earlier, the National Land Commission must up their game. We are often dealing with, as a land committee, dealing with so many petitions from all other areas that are involving the National Land Commission. And here we call upon, I want to call upon the new nominee for the land ministry, that when finally vetting is done and he resumes office, Honorable Speaker, the issue of the National Land Commission must be looked into. Because from the observations I've had in the Lands Committee, this commission seems to be a struggling commission. Either they are not facilitated well, or we need as a sector to review some of their functions. If they are not able to serve Kenyans, then their mandate must be looked into. Honorable Speaker, just the last week we were dealing with a petition also, a statement from our sister, the Senator of Isiolo. And this is a problem, a challenge that she has had with the National Land Commission for over 1 year. It is unresolved. And each time it looks like the National Land Commission is not able to solve it. And so when the new CS comes in, after vetting and appointment, the CS must ensure that National Land Commission is functioning as expected by Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, this is a commission that, as Kenyans, will add a lot of expectations on. As the managers of public land, they must be able to solve a number of problems that Kenyans have with the land issues, and particularly public land as stated in their mandate. Honorable Speaker, I support this petition. I support the fact that the land that is still left open and used by the Kenya Prisons Department, the land that is not occupied by the primary school, be set aside and restored, and afforestation programs initiated, and the land must be set aside for the original use of grazing of the people. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, physical planning must be done by the county government of Nyamira. They must zone these areas and preserve land as was initially expected by the people of Nyamira. And where, Honorable Speaker, there are changes to the use of land, it is important that our people are involved and their aspirations are carried into such change of use. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Boni Kalwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every time we deal on petitions in this House, it gives me hope that the new constitution, or the constitution of 2010, is the solution of the future, of the challenges of the future of this country. Mr. Speaker, looking at the strong recommendations made by the committee, if this House goes on and adopts this report, it will go down on record that we can use petitions, we can use this House to secure public interest, and Mr. Speaker, more importantly, to check the thirst and the greed of some Kenyans who want to own public property when in effect they don't even need it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you are to dissect the people who are now encroaching on this land, you will find that, Mr. Speaker, some of them are former public civil servants who worked in that area and in the bad old days allocated part of that land to themselves, and now in retirement they are struggling in courts to justify that property which the and justifiably converted to personal use is theirs. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to thank all the members of this committee, led by the chair, for the good work that they have done, and I specifically want, Mr. Speaker, to single out just a few bullets that have got my eye. Mr. Speaker, if you go to bullet number 64 in this report, we are told that the Prisons Department has put up temporary offices and staff quarters made of iron sheets, and that they have gone further and put up a permanent structure measuring approximately 6 meters by 4 meters for housing 33 inmates. Mr. Speaker, how the government went sleeping and allowed itself, or a section of itself called the Prisons Department, to interfere with the ecosystem of this area in the county of Nyamira begs for very many questions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the wetland also has been allowed to host Isiani Primary School. How people woke up and started constructing a primary school on this wetland when we have the officers of government, including district commissioners, including all the district land officers and what have you, NEMA, it beats logic, Mr. Speaker. I ask myself, all these people involved, they report to the office Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. How come they never saw that wetland was being destroyed by putting up a primary school? Mr. Speaker, in bullet number 66, we are told that we have farming activities that predominantly attract human activity on the wetland and its surrounding environments, Mr. Speaker, and that the prison has set aside 20 acres for farming. Question is, what is the core role of a prison? Is it farming? In fact, we must stop all prisons in Kenya from doing any farming activity. Their core responsibility is to take care of prisoners. If they are denied this opportunity, it means the farmers in Nyamira will have an opportunity to do business with Nyamira prisons so that they sell their farm produce to this prison and they make money, instead of setting aside 20 acres in the pretext that the food that comes from these 20 acres is used to feed prisoners. It should never be the case. And in fact, it is not the case. The officers, the prison officers in Nyamira, what they do, they farm these 20 acres, Mr. Speaker, the maize, the sorghum, the beans, the millet that they get from these 20 acres, Mr. Speaker, they actually sell to the Prisons Department and they are paid as officers. So this is a clear avenue of corruption which allows prisons officers in Nyamira to enrich themselves, pretending that they have crops and farm produce which they are able to sell to the prison's land. Mr. Speaker, this reminds me of the experience we have back home in Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, a similar situation is in Kakamega, a place called Shikusa Prisons. The officers are doing exactly what is happening in Nyamira. This report and its recommendations should not only apply to Nyamira, they should also apply to Kakamega. Because officers come to Kakamega, and by the time they leave the station 5 years, 10 years later, they have become multimillionaires by farming Shikusa prison and selling the produce to Shikusa prisons. Mr. Speaker, you were in that chair when I clashed on the floor of this House during question time with the former Minister for Roads and Transport. I clashed with him over the issue of Shikuza prison land because he proposed from the podium there that they had talked to some MPs of Kakamega and they wanted to convert it into an airport. And I was telling him it's not right. You can't desegregate the environment for the sake of an airport. And therefore, we, the people of Kakamega in general, and the people of Shinyalu in particular, we are saying, never shall we allow Shikusa prison land to be converted into an airport. We want the current airstrip in Kakamega to be expanded according to the wishes, Mr. Speaker, of the 197 families that have signed and agreed to move for expansion instead of going and interfering with the ecosystem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, bullet number 67 tells us that the land has been encroached by members of the community, has been converted to farm land without provision for environmental conservation. Mr. Speaker, my appeal to the good people of Nyamira, even as this House sits to deliberate, and we are saying that we are not going to allow Senator of Nyamira, the community, the people of Nyamira, a section of them, to go into this land, you should bear with us. I know some member of the community will feel that we are throwing them out. Yes, we are. If you want to get free land, these people who are affected, statistically, there is no fairness because you are just a few of you who want to benefit where it is not justified. The population of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, is 605,576 people.
What is your point of order?
Yes, I would like to be informed by the Senior Counsel.
Proceed to inform the Honorable Senator.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform Senator Halwale, my good friend from Kakamega, that the people of Nyamira have not approached the Senate to get permission to go and settle in that wetland. The people of Nyamira have petitioned the Senate so that the Senate can intervene and protect the wetland. So the submission, Mr. Speaker, that the Senator of Kakamega is making are misleading. The people of Nyamira, I repeat, have not approached the Senate so that the Senate can give them free land. They want the Senate to assist them to ensure that this wetland is protected and preserved so that the people of Nyamira can benefit from a good ecosystem, Mr. Speaker. That's what I wanted to inform Senator Halwale.
Senator Bone, proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Senator of Nyamira for that piece of information, but would also like to urge him to read the report, where in bullet 67, Senator of Nyamira, I want the people of Nyamira to understand me very well. They are my in-laws. That the bullet says the land encroached on by members of the community, encroached on by members of the community has been converted to farmland without provision for environmental conservation. It is this section, small section of people from the community who have invited that I'm apologizing to understand that we are asking them to leave, not because we are denying them an opportunity to till this land, but because of the bigger picture of wanting to enhance environmental conservation. And Mr. Speaker, Senator of Nyamira, you know, you and I have said the same thing. I would like to refer you to the story of the blind man who touched the elephant. Maybe you are the blind one who touched the tail, and I'm the blind one who touched the ears. We are still talking about the same elephant. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to go directly to the recommendations. I agree with all the recommendations, 143, 144, 145, and through to 149. But members of the committee, let us look at what you are saying in 144. And Senator of Nyamira, if you have the copy, I would like us to go to 144. In 144, I agree with all the recommendations. They are solving our problem. But there is a bitter taste in my mouth when I read recommendation number 144. Mr. Speaker, it says, a moratorium on further subdivision of the wetland should be enforced by the county government of Nyamira until a comprehensive physical development plan is in place. So this recommendation is actually anticipating the possibility that once you get a physical development plan in place, we can ever entertain the possibility of subdivision of this land. I feel this particular sentence is offensive. It should just be in black and white that the land, the wetland in Nyamira shall never be open to subdivision. And Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I congratulate my colleagues who sat on this committee, and I support.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to join my colleagues in congratulating this committee that has looked at this petition of Nyamira. And I hope the petitioners are going to get solution to the current problems they are facing. Mr. Speaker, I think there is a major problem as far as land acquisition by relevant government institutions in this country is concerned. And it is a matter that we really need to review, Mr. Speaker. Looking at the petition, Mr. Speaker, sir, you can imagine 104 acres of land owned by certain institution in a place like Nyamira, where the population is increasing. That is a big chunk of land, which procedurally it should not happen. And again, Mr. Speaker, it's not being used in the right manner. Mr. Speaker, I used to work with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and I was a convener of a program that touches on prison services. And Mr. Speaker, I remember one time I was actually heading a committee that looked at the issues of prison in this house, and I think it was 2019, where we visited several institutions of the prisons to look at the land use by prisons. Mr. Speaker, you will see that those government institutions are keeping huge chunks of land which are not actually put in proper use. And again, Mr. Speaker, there is so much grabbing of the similar land by different individuals that are taking place. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say here that prison, as far as its core mandate is concerned, Mr. Speaker, is rehabilitation of the inmates, or rather even the prisoners. And as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, you will see that the land they have in this country, some of them are over 900 acres, 1,000 acres in several parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, that land is not actually put in the proper use, because you can imagine they have a labor force that is already there. And accountability of the produce out of that particular land is in question, Mr. Speaker, because it's not properly accounted for. And again, Mr. Speaker, it's actually the land is not utilized properly. Mr. Speaker, there is a big challenge. And again, looking at this situation of Nyamira, where you can imagine a government institution is blocking the usage of water or even polluting the water that is actually being used by the community. That is a very serious offense, Mr. Speaker. And I think personally, I feel that we need to review the use of land and also acquisition of land by different institutions of government, because it's not put in the proper use. Mr. Speaker, looking at prison land, you can imagine if that land is properly utilized, it can feed the whole country, let me tell you. But unfortunately, that land is not put in proper use. And I think something has to be done, because if you look at the budget of prisons, Mr. Speaker, they have billions of pending bills while they are keeping those huge chunks of land in this particular country. And those bills should have been paid actually from the proceeds of the land that they get from the prisons. Mr. Speaker, again, compulsory acquisition. Counties actually are not properly involved. And even the land use, because if the land use has changed, Mr. Speaker, counties should be involved. And they should be told this is the direction the planning is supposed to take. But you will find that, Mr. Speaker, even the counties, sometimes they relegate their responsibility to the national government. They don't actually protect the right of the citizens as required by law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have seen also there is destruction of flora and fauna, which is actually very dangerous, but by the government institutions. And that has to be investigated properly and right action to be taken against those government institutions. Mr. Speaker, I have a similar situation in Isiolo County, where a prison has over 10,000 acres within CBD, and they are not properly using that land. It's become a den of actually criminals within Isiolo town. It's within CBD, Mr. Speaker. And we have tried as a county to give them an alternative piece of land so that they can move out of town and utilize land outside the CBD. But unfortunately, they are reluctant. And I think, Mr. Speaker, issues of acquisition of land, some of them happened actually many years before the population has increased. But it is high time that we really need to review those land acquired by the national government institutions so that we can have a proper planning for some of us, especially for us, we don't even have development land within CBD as Isiolo County. And yet there's idle land actually lying somewhere there where prison department is actually even trying to see how they can corrupt the system and give the same land to private individuals. There is a case even in court where somebody has acquired an illegal title. Mr. Speaker, I believe this committee has done the right thing as far as this petition is concerned, and the petitioners have gotten a solution to this problem. But I think there is serious thinking as far as land is concerned, because most of the counties are affected by compulsory acquisition of land through national government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a similar issue, acquisition of land for the purpose of road use in Isiolo County, Isiolo-Modogashe Road. Mr. Speaker, NLC sitting at the Nairobi, they don't know the challenges people are actually going through, Mr. Speaker. The other day, I had a statement before Land Committee. Mr. Speaker, NLC decided to go on the ground without even consulting myself, who is the owner of the statement, Mr. Speaker. You can imagine they are actually coming up with compensation figures where you can imagine an area that is called Nuno Madogashe, compensation was higher than Isiolo County, While the law allows, if, for example, Isiolo is coming after Nuno Modogashe, the compensation should be higher than the Nuno Modogashe. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you, there is so much corruption that is happening, even at the Land Commission itself, and in actually compensating individuals from those lands that are acquired by government institutions. Mr. Speaker, I wish this petitioners good luck as far as the recommendation is concerned, because you will find sometimes we make recommendations here, Mr. Speaker, but we don't have opportunities to follow through and make sure that those issues are recommended. And I hope the Committee of Land will be able to look through and ensure that the petitioners have gotten their right as far as this petition is concerned. And I believe Senator Fonyamira is here. He will be able also to follow through and see that petitioners have gotten their right. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support. I thank you.
Senator Karunga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity for me to also weigh in and support this report by the committee. And of course, thank the committee for listening to every party in coming up with these recommendations, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, I think as a country and as people who are mandated to lead our people and fight for solutions, I think it's a high time we get out from the areas of promises, planning, I will do, I want to do, and go to the areas of I have done nothing, so that the people will be able to know whether you're capable of holding a certain office, either in these departments we are talking about, Mr. Speaker. Why am I saying so? If you read this report, Mr. Speaker, all the way from bullet 130 or paragraph 130, you will hear the Ministry of Environment had this to say, that we are planning, we will be doing something. The neighboring communities who have encroached in the wetland will be engaged, Mr. Speaker. The relevant government institutions, that is Kenya Forest, Kenya Forest Research Institute, will be approached. Mr. Speaker, I think it's a high time the Environment Department could have just said, we have done nothing. We don't know nothing about Siani, Mr. Speaker. If you go to the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, they also responded as follows, Mr. Speaker. We will endeavor to restore the wetland, Mr. Speaker. The wetland, as will be outlined in the Wetland Environment Management Plan that will be developed, will be looked into. Mr. Speaker, if you look at all these issues, there is a problem. And the people of Siani, with the 101 acres, although the report is talking about 104 acres, but when you convert 41 hectares, it is 101 acres, Mr. Speaker. The people of Siani wetland want a solution, and the solution is to preserve this wetland. And I think, Mr. Speaker, wetlands should be protected areas. I think we should come up with a law that they should be protected areas, because they are the source of water. And I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, these wetlands were initially lakes, Mr. Speaker. But because of so many years of degradation and earth movement and all that, they became wetlands because of the fauna, flora and fauna, Mr. Speaker. Even in Kiambu, we have Onderi wetland, Mr. Speaker, that was initially 74 acres, but it's now 37 acres, Mr. Speaker. And it is actually was an old lake. Even when you listen to the name Onderi, it's old lake, Onderi wetland, Mr. Speaker. And the people there in Kikuyu constituency have joined hands to preserve this Onderi swamp or Onderi wetland, Mr. Speaker. What I'm trying to say, if the government or the counties can come up with proper policies on protecting these wetlands,
because they are the source of waters. I don't know whether you know, Mr. Speaker, that Nairobi water comes from this Onderi wetland, Mr. Speaker. It is the mother of 40 water springs in the area of Kikuyu and the surrounding, plus Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. So when I look at this report, and I thank the committee because they came up with very nice recommendations. But these recommendations should have timelines, Mr. Speaker. Because if we leave it like that, they will take their sweet time. Mr. Speaker, you know when you hear a government agency or a government department, that is the Kenya prisons, and you know I was just telling you, the other entities or the other governments have done nothing. That is, Nyamira County has nothing about it. They are also planning. NEMA has done nothing. They are also planning. Kenya Forest has done nothing. They are also planning. Land Commission has done nothing. They are also planning, Mr. Speaker. The only person who has done something is Kenya Prisons, and it is to take the land, Mr. Speaker. So I think this report should have given timelines. And these timelines is to make sure that the people of Nyamira are engaged. And they should also go to Kiambu County, that is Onderi Swamp, the same report, that whatever they do to Nyamira, they do to Kiambu, Mr. Speaker, so that we protect these water tables, we protect these water sources. Otherwise, going that in future, Mr. Speaker, we will have no water, even in Nairobi. We'll have no water even in our homes, Mr. Speaker. And there is a saying that says, Mr. Speaker, never drain a river until it dries, Mr. Speaker. What that means is, be the person to make sure that that water, that river has water, by sustaining it, by planting the proper trees, by coming up with the initiative to protect that area, those areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the report, the reason why the petitioners came is because they are afraid or they fear that they're going to lose the swamp, Mr. Speaker. And why are they losing the swamp? Some of them are to blame because there is cultivation, Mr. Speaker. They are cutting the indigenous trees so that they can plant, Mr. Speaker. And that's why, as the Senator of Nyamira was saying and the Senator of Kakamega, we should involve them to make sure that they exit peacefully, or as they are doing this kind of agricultural activities, they do it while they are preserving the wetland, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's construction in that swamp. They even have constructed a primary school, Mr. Speaker. And as much as people would want to use that land to build a school, remember when you build a school, you're inviting population. Because people go where there are schools, people go where there's water, people go where there is good land, good institutions. So when you build a school, we are already inviting people to come close to that, Mr. Speaker. So the people of Nyamira should be consulted. Public participation must be done so that we preserve this water source, Mr. Speaker. There's also an issue of pollution, Mr. Speaker. And you know, pollution is all about sanitation, garbage that comes from these homes, Mr. Speaker. And if it is not done, even the water that comes from there will be contaminated. And it will go downstream to the other areas. And you know, we still have waterborne diseases, Mr. Speaker. So I think, as much as we are accepting this report and supporting this report, we should invite NEMA again after a few months. We invite the county government of Nyamira after a few months. We invite the CS for environment once they are vetted and if they are approved, so that they can take this issue and we tie along the Onderi Swamp of Kiambu, Mr. Speaker. We talk to Kenya Forestry, the Land Ministry, the Interior Ministry. This is a multi-agency and department problem. That should be solved, Mr. Speaker. Because sometimes I don't understand. This thing has been there for so many days, for so many years, and nothing has been done. And somebody somewhere is seated in an office that is mandated to solve these issues, and they're doing nothing. And I can give you a good example, Mr. Speaker. Like my people of Gatundu North, in a place called Gatei, in Muserere Shopping Center, Mr. Speaker. They have lived for over 2 months without electricity, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because Kenya Power took a transformer for repair. 2 months they have not returned that transformer to the people, and the people are suffering. The schools there, Gatei Secondary, Gatei Junior Academy, and of course Gatei Primary, they did not do the exams because the exams are printed in schools, Mr. Speaker, and the schools have no electricity. Animals are suffering because the farmers use chaff cutters and they use electricity. Mr. Speaker, the water, they don't have waters in their home because they use electricity to pump water, Mr. Speaker. Insecurity is also another issue. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the things that we are saying. Somebody is seated somewhere, he's mandated to do something, and he's not doing it. I would even suggest that the CS in charge of this energy department to have his home disconnected with electricity so that he can understand what my people are going through. Or even the PS right now, his home and his people's home should be disconnected with electricity. 2 months without electricity, Mr. Speaker, is too much. Even 1 day without electricity. Mr. Speaker, to preserve these wetlands, I'm talking about Onderi Swamp, I'm talking about Siani Swamp, Mr. Speaker, we should have buffer zones. Buffer zones is before you get there, you're cleared. We have to check what you have so that we can avoid pollution, so that we can avoid grabbers who get in, Mr. Speaker, to go and in the name of preserving, they're taking land, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we should also have sustainable agriculture. I know, as it is in this report, some people have used it to cultivate. I was actually looking online. I've seen they have even taken the soil to make bricks for their houses, Mr. Speaker. So you can see they are not only draining the swamp, they're also taking away even the soil, Mr. Speaker. So probably within a few years, we will have no water if this report is not implemented fully. And Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, we have to support advocacy. Those groups that form in the village, the CBOs, that come up with initiatives to preserve and talk about these swamps, we should support them. Maybe even the county government should have a budget for such groups, because it means sometimes the county government is not aware. So they should have such kind of kitties so that they can help in the budgets of preserving these wetlands, Mr. Speaker. And as I conclude with that proverb from East Africa, never drain a river until it dries. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Dhangwa. Senator Mweni Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me an opportunity to contribute to this report on the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, this petition involves people from my county, and some of them migrated from our neighboring county, represented by Senator Vomabe here, Senator Kajwang. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the people who vote in Misambi, Mogonga, Nyaobe, are communities of Luo, Kisii. In fact, in Misambi polling station, I'm sure 3/4 of people in Misambi migrated from Kadongo. So, and if you go to Nyabambo, when I want a nice fish, when I'm in Nyamira, I go to Nyabambo market. That's where we get very good fish from Homa Bay. So it is a place that has demonstrated that two neighboring communities can live peacefully as Kenyans. I don't know that Senator Kalwale, you have such a thing in Kakamega, but as we have coexisted very, very peacefully with these brothers of ours from Luo Nyanza, they control 4 polling stations. They vote for me. I always lead in those 4 polling stations, and we have lived very well, Mr. Speaker. Senator Beatrice Oyomo can confirm that if she'd make some traces, she will find a few of our relatives residing either in Misambi, Nyaobe, or somewhere around there. So these are people you can call marginalized, you know. They are kind of marginalized people. We have been trying to push through a nomination. We propose names, but when things reach Nairobi headquarters, ODM, they miss out. So I hear them, and I really want the Senate to listen to them. So, Speaker, I was trying to inform Senator Kalwale that if you read the prayers of the petitioners, they are not seeking consent to settle on this wetland. And if you went to page 11 of the report, you will see what they are seeking. Number one, you know, this is what they are seeking. They want the Senate to assist so that there is a stoppage on destruction of the wetland and direct that the ecosystem, okay, be preserved for future generations. Very progressive Kenyans. Prayer number two, they want to stop the National Land Commission and the county government of Nyamira from subdividing the wetland. Very progressive Kenyans. Three, they want the Senate to direct the county government of Nyamira and the Ministry of Lands.
Senator Boni Karware, what is your point of order? Sorry, Senator Kongo.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry that I'm interrupting the Senator of Nyamira, but I would like him to help us. Understanding order number 105, Mr. Speaker, could the Senator table evidence that names of the residents of this region were forwarded to ODM headquarters, and these people were denied their political rights, that the party ODM is marginalizing these people? Could he table the evidence, substantiate, failing which he should withdraw and apologize? Because I come from a county, Kakamega, which is predominantly ODM, and ODM has demonstrated in Kakamega that they don't marginalize anybody. Could he clarify?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Halwale used to be a member of ODM. He ran away. I don't know why he's mourning more than the bereaved. He has no business in commenting on businesses of ODM. He used to be a member. He bolted. He ran away. Now that he has had something called broad-based government, he's trying to again warm up to ODM. We will deal with our issues, Mr. Speaker. We don't need any advice or any messages of comfort from Senator Halwale. That is meant to distract me. So the point I was making, Mr.
Sorry,
Speaker.
Senator Okongo Mugeni, Senator
Yes.
Beatrice Ogora wants to give you some information. I don't know whether you are
No, if
ready
it is to
take
inform
it
me,
up.
I'll be happy to be informed by Senator Beatrice Ogora.
Okay. Senator
Yeah, I just needed to inform senior counsel that you don't need to worry about the mention of ODM and any related stake of ODM, because that is the order of the day. That party, the party leader, is a name that must be part of the conversation of Kenya.
Resume. Senator Okongo Mugeni.
Yes. So just breathe in and out. You'll be hearing a lot about ODM, about the party leader, about him going to AU. Just get used to these things. They will occupy our spaces for a while now. So, Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted Senator Halwale to get is because I had him, during his contribution, he was trying to create the impression that these petitioners have approached the Senate so that they can get a piece of the cake from this wetland. Those are not the prayers in the petition. So I think that's what I wanted Senator Halwale to get. But number two, Mr. Speaker, anybody invoking Article 119 of the Constitution and approaches the Senate needs to see that the Senate cares about the concerns of that cadre of Kenyans. I am saddened, Mr. Speaker, and have nothing against the chair of this committee, my friend, what's the name? My friend John Methu. But Speaker, when Kenyans have brought a petition of this nature, and they are complaining that a public entity has encroached a wetland. In fact, that a public entity is trying to divert a river so that they can make a construction. The least that the people of Nyamira expected, Mr. Speaker, is that the Senate assess the situation for themselves. It is sad.
And she said she warmly welcomes us. Only that it is very cold. But the welcome was very warm. I am very delighted to join you at the climax of these celebrations to mark a century of technical and vocational education and training in Kenya. As you may recall, I launched the celebration on 26 March this year, after which the Tibet at 100 torch has traveled throughout Kenya, traversing every county in every part of our republic. As it returns to the host institution, the Flame's journey through our country has shown us there is much to celebrate in the history of Tibet in Kenya. From the initial government African school in Machakos, which existed informally, the first formal Tibet Institute was established here in Kabete in 1924. And we couldn't have celebrated 100 years of Tibet in a better place than in this Kabete Institute. Before independence, seven others were established in Mawego, Nairobi, Sigalagala, Kaiboi, Thika, Machakos, and Meru. Today, our Tibet system includes 320 public Tibet colleges, 24 of which are national polytechnics, while 4 cater for special needs. Additionally, there are 1,100 vocational training centers in our counties, and we are developing 16 new TVCs to fulfill our policy of having one each in every constituency. As was said by Madam P.S. earlier, it is my commitment that every constituency in Kenya must have a Tibet so that we equalize the fortunes of every county and every constituency and give a chance to as many of our young people as we can. Initially, Tibet institutions were mandated to equip young people with practical and technical skills, which enabled them become part of such historic projects as the Kenya-Uganda Railway. The relentless expansion of Tibet in Kenya is proof of our economy's insatiable appetite for industry-driven relevant skills and the increasing demand for specialized training which aligns the education of young Kenyans with existing and emerging opportunities. As demonstrated by the Flames itinerary, no part of Kenya has been left behind in this demand for technical and vocational training. In fact, today, we celebrate the enduring promise of Tibet and the robustness of its capacity to connect young people with opportunities throughout our economy. We also celebrate its inclusivity, a world of possibility for all, and a hope that leaves nobody behind. The numbers affirm our confidence that indeed Tibet is the master key to the door of opportunities for young Kenyans. I know Tibet has positioned itself that if education is the key then TVET is the master key. And I think that cannot be more apt. 6 years ago, 10 years ago, in fact in 2013, we had only 89,000 students in our TVET institutions. Today, we have close to 700,000 students in our TVET institutions. It has grown almost tenfold. And it speaks to the possibilities that TVET is offering to many young people across Kenya. I remember when I was Minister for Higher Education and I was pushing for TVET, there was a lot of pushback then that formal education was much more superior to TVET education. Today, I think we have equalized the fortunes of all Kenyans. The choices are now as open as they can get. You have students joining either TVET or university equally, and they can sample opportunities also equally. And therefore, I am very proud of the journey that TVET has made, especially in the last 10 years. Our bottom-up economic transformation agenda also ignited tremendous momentum in job creation, opening up thousands of lucrative opportunities in the technical and vocational fields in our priority strategic pillars of affordable housing, universal health coverage, digital economy, and agro-industrial production, and throughout every other sector, locally and abroad. At the same time, reforms in our education sector, both in the competence-based curriculum and training and in the transformation of higher education funding model, have promoted relevance, skills, and competitiveness, and also inclusivity. We are also intentional about developing and providing high-quality human resource to support TVET. Humanity is now irrevocably plunged into the future of immense threats and crises that can only be surmounted by sustainable innovation and effective technology deployment against every risk and every challenge. The government is determined to ensure that Kenya is not left behind and that our young people remain at the forefront of global industrial and technical progress. Our education system has never been more essential, and TVET in particular is now a focal sector which must receive our full attention because we cannot afford to get it wrong. We must remember that our freedom struggle remains incomplete, and the attainment of inclusive growth and broad-based prosperity is our best way of winning freedom from hunger, disease, and want. Therefore, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, and our Vision 2030 depend on our capacity to catalyze national transformation in a manner set out in the bottom-up transformation agenda. In other words, the freedom struggle of our time calls for a skills revolution driven by science, technology, and innovation. Consequently, we must supply our labor market with skilled and innovative human capital in order to unlock the vast opportunities in key sectors such as agriculture, the blue economy, renewable energy, manufacturing, infrastructure development, mining, housing, and climate action. For these reasons, we continue to drive the transformation of TVET system by implementing important reforms and developments, including, I already issued instructions that the development, education, and training curriculum, Assessment and Certification Council, CDAC, be reinstated and takes over the role of examining our students, providing exams for our students, because it is the qualified body for it to make sure that our trainers are assessed on skills acquired and competencies achieved rather than on stories told. I think that that's really the basic tenet of why we pushed for TVET. I also must say that I am very proud of what we have decided on recognition of prior learning. It is an important tool of getting more people to be certified, especially when they have skills, especially when they have acquired those skills over time. And there's need for a framework, and I'm very happy that many institutions around Kenya, many TVET institutions, are now implementing that program on recognition of prior learning as a government policy that then gives opportunity to many people to be certified and for them to be able to have the requisite papers to be able to further their careers. I'm very also happy that we have upgraded 13 technical training institutes and colleges to national polytechnics to give them also opportunity to be able to offer education at a higher level and to support the others for us to move forward. I'm also happy on the elevation of Morendat Institute of Oil and Gas into a national polytechnic. Again, it gives us the opportunity to unlock the potential in the oil and gas space, and especially as we focus on how to deliver those products coming from that sector into the economy. I am also very happy that the ministry is running with the implementation of the National DVET Blueprint 2020 to 2030. And that whole space where we are developing and implementing a dual training policy, which involves industry players in the training process. In fact, this morning, I listened to Kevin, one of the students who was taking us through a presentation. And Kevin told me that we need to balance between the training that we have in college and the opportunity we have to work in industry. And I think he was speaking to the policy of dual training. And therefore, if you wanted any validation that dual training is the way to go, I think even the students in these colleges are speaking the same language with us, that we need to do more to make sure that we connect what happens in class, what happens in our laboratories, what happens in our workshops, and what happens in industry. And that is the way to the future. And I want to encourage principals, and I want to encourage the ministry to work with industry. And I'm very happy with the partnership that has already been fashioned between the ministry and industry and our training colleges to provide opportunities for young people from these institutions to be able to be trained and to acquire the skills necessary for them to be job ready when they get out of college. Let me also confirm that on the funding model, we are working to make sure that especially children from vulnerable families are not left behind. It is very important that we leave nobody behind in this training and in this program and in providing education. We have doubled the budget for training in TVET and in our universities, deliberately, because we want to give every child in Kenya an opportunity to learn. I know that there has been a bit of confusion, and I have asked the ministry to clarify that some of the letters sent to parents may indicate 200,000, 300,000, but that is not what a parent is expected to pay. That is the cost of the course. The government is going to make scholarship, is going to make loan available, depending on the financial ability of parents or guardians or sponsors of students, so that we make it possible for government to support as many students as possible, and also make it possible for government to support students from vulnerable families to the highest level possible. I also want to ask members of parliament to work with us on this program so that we can get the correct message out there that our intention is to make sure that our institutions have the requisite resources to run courses. I think in the past, TVET institutions, managers of our TVET institutions, managers of our universities were struggling because while government committed so much money, they delivered half or sometimes less than half, and therefore it became difficult for the training to go on. I am also very happy that we have doubled the number of instructors in our TVET institutions. We had 1,300. We have hired another 2,000 TVET tutors to bring the total trained faculty to 3,300. I still want a conversation with the TVET stakeholders as to whether we have the optimal numbers or we still need to do something about the terms of service and all other requirements for us to be able to make sure that we are training our young people well. Let me also announce here that we have since concluded another program of about 13 billion shillings to equip another 70 TVET institutions with state-of-the-art facilities, again, to provide training for world-class exposure in the course of their learning. I want my PS Moria to clearly understand that these TVET institutions will be facilitated, and I want a clearer program on the delivery of this state-of-the-art equipment. I want to thank Germany for what they have done in other TVET institutions. I want to thank Canada for what they have done in some of our TVET institutions. And I want the ministry to work with TVET managers so that we can carefully identify institutions that will benefit from the supply of our new equipment into different parts of Kenya. Let me also say that we have established 213 Jitume centers in various parts of the country, complete with 370 trained tutors to support young people in preparing for and accessing digital jobs. So far, 516,000 young people have been trained and 152,000 digital jobs successfully accessed. I was very happy this morning to speak to Anne and to speak to Samson, some of the students who are, some of the graduates of our training program, that today they are monetizing their skills. They are working online. And I was asking Samson because many people do not believe that there are digital opportunities, digital jobs in that space. And I got a confirmation from Samson and many others that indeed they are monetizing their talent, they are working online, and we are framing that space. I have already worked with our members of parliament. We have changed the law, and we are going to have a digital hub that can support between 200 and 300 students in every ward in the Republic of Kenya. The chairman of the ICT committee, my good friend, the MP for this area, KJ, is right here. And I am working with him and the CDF committee to make sure that every ward in Kenya will have a working, equipped ICT hub. The CDF will construct the building. The government of Kenya will deliver internet. We are going to deliver computers. We're going to provide trainers. And young people from across Kenya will get an opportunity to monetize their talent in those spaces. I am aware that it is difficult to tell the story of 100 years of Tibet in Kenya in such a brief period. What I wish to underscore is our total commitment to quality, equity, and inclusivity in preparing our young people to access local and global opportunities. Another principle that has enabled us achieve such and much in transforming our Tibet system is partnership. We have benefited greatly from the goodwill of generous friends, including Tibet Technical Working Group, the United Nations Habitat, the International Labour Organization, World Bank, GIZ, Colleges Institute Canada, China, and Finland. We are grateful for their support and for this historic transformation that we have achieved together. I urge young people, especially graduates, from our tertiary institutions to pay close attention to the unfolding opportunities that have been unlocked through our overseas employment opportunities strategy and bilateral labor agreements with various governments. I think you've just heard a testimony from the ambassador of Germany that in September this year, we will be signing the first ever bilateral labor and migration agreement between Germany and any other country. And that will unlock huge opportunities for our young people to get jobs in different parts of Germany and also give ourselves an opportunity to work with other countries. The State Department of Diaspora Affairs is spearheading the Kazi Maju program, and the National Employment Agency maintains an up-to-date database on available opportunities. I encourage you to look up your opportunity and get ready to work your way to success, either in Kenya or outside Kenya. Let me also say the following, because we need to categorically state what we are doing to be able to provide more opportunities, especially for those who have acquired skills, who have competencies from our colleges, from our universities. The housing program is a very deliberate program for us to unlock thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs for those who are graduating from our schools and colleges and universities. Already, we have 160,000 people working in our housing program. Last 2 weeks, in the newspapers, we announced another 4,000 opportunities for students from our TVETs or graduates from our TVETs and universities to provide professional expertise in our housing programs and market programs around Kenya. We are expecting architects, we are expecting quantity surveyors, we are expecting those who have learned on many other supervisory skills to participate in that program as we grow jobs in that space. Let me also say, when I went through the program here, another young man called Anthony was talking to me about industrial automation. And again, manufacturing, industrialization is a space we must be very keen about. And I have made deliberate policy interventions to expand opportunities in our manufacturing and industrial space. Last year, for example, we said that we are going to reduce on the imports of clinker, of cement, of steel, of furniture. What happened when we did that and we imposed duty on imported clinker cement furniture that we can manufacture locally. On steel alone, 11 companies that had closed down started operations, employing 16,000 Kenyans. And we stopped the imports of steel billets and saved 100 billion Kenya shillings on foreign exchange. Apart from creating jobs, we saved on foreign exchange, and we created wealth and job opportunities locally by making sure that we deliberately promote local manufacture. In the same space, we stopped the importation of clinker so that we can manufacture clinker locally. We not only saved 20 billion of foreign exchange, we actually exported clinker from Kenya and made 10 billion shillings to the region. Apart from creating jobs locally and reducing the import of clinker by 95%. I went to open the factory in West Pokot, which now employs close to 2,500 people directly and another 2,500 people indirectly, and giving ourselves the opportunity to use local raw materials to manufacture our own cement, our own clinker, create jobs locally, create wealth locally, and stop hemorrhage from our foreign exchange. We must be deliberate. We must be intentional, whether it is with housing, whether it is with our manufacturing, whether it is with our digital jobs, and whether it is in our export of labor. We must be intentional on creating opportunities for young people in Kenya to work, either at home or abroad, so that we can enhance their incomes and give them opportunities to be the best of who they are. I also take this opportunity to thank trainees at our TVET colleges for their sterling contribution to the National Tree Planting Drive. So far, you have planted 3.8 million trees, exceeding the initial target of 500,000. I don't know who gave you this small target of 500,000. I think the target was very low, but you've done well. I am honored to call the young people of Kenya heroic partners in our effort to combat deforestation and climate change. 100 years of TVET in Kenya have been marked by relentless transformation, strong partnerships, robust endowment, and incremental opportunities. Today, we gather here where it all began, to envision the future over the next 100 years. I say in confidence that standing on the platform of this excellent legacy, TVET will power Kenya to the age of global competitiveness in industrialization, technology, and innovation. Let us therefore remain focused on our transformation agenda and the important cause of endowing Kenya with a skills capital through equity, quality, and inclusivity. I am very confident that together, working together, we should be able to get our act in the right place and take Kenya to the next level. Thank you very much. My congratulations to all of you. God bless you, and God bless our great country, Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And together with celebrating 100, there is the launch of the Centenary Block Model and Strategic Plan 2023, which we'll do from there. But allow me to invite the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the PSS President, the German Ambassador to flank His Excellency as we now launch the Centenary Block and Strategic Plan 2023-2027 at the count of 5. So if we can, I think let's join His Excellency on stage. Just the PS is present, and the German Ambassador and the Prime Cabinet Secretary. The rest we can all witness from where we are, so that we are not too many.
And I'll count down by 5 so that we have the launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what we have there now is the launch of the centenary block model and the strategic plan 2023-2027. Thank you. And with that, we have now come to the end of this particular ceremony. So after His Excellency has done a brief inspection of the model,
will position the Kitui County Assembly so that they can be at the same level as their senator. The senator for Kitui is very vigilant and is very keen on oversight and proper financial management. We want our assemblies to reflect their capability, to reflect the ambitions of their respective senators. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, when I come to Nyamira County Assembly, I am disappointed that one of the finest senators in this House, or one of the finest legislators in the history of our parliament, comes from Nyamira, Senator Okongo Omoge. But if you look at the county assembly, the way it is managed and the way it is run, I do not know which pool they picked the leadership of the assembly and whether it was a different pool from which they picked the senator for Nyamira. Because, Mr. Speaker, Nyamira County Assembly appeared before the Senate and the senator for Nandi was chairing, and every matter was unresolved and referred to the EACC. And when the vice chair, sitting on behalf of the speaker, gave directives for Nyamira County Assembly to go and correct and give authority to incur and accounting officer roles to the clerk, they went home and fired the clerk, effectively showing us the middle finger. Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that our assemblies are a reflection of the senators here. I think it's only Senator Boni Khalwale who could be proud.
Chair that of CPAC, that last sentence, can you kindly remove it from the answer? Replace with Ambeta Wandi. Because you are doing so well, I don't want the answer to have that something you have mentioned.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw and apologize. As I explained in the earlier case
what have you been doing? What have you been doing?
The offensive words. Because if I mention them, then I'll give further effect to the offense.
Okay.
So, Mr. Speaker, I apologize and withdraw for being offensive. As I mentioned when we were considering the impeachment for the governor for Meru County, Mr. Speaker, and I'm informed that Njuri Ncheke has refused to be drawn into those shenanigans. Mr. Speaker, I think in Suba, then I translate to Luo, then I translate to English. So sometimes when I speak in English, my words can be taken out of context. Mr. Speaker, I had committed to withdraw and apologize unreservedly on the comments that had made that seemed to indicate that there was no lucid person in Meru County. And as we had agreed, I will bring a proper formal statement so that the record is set clear, and I'm always willing to abide by your directives, Mr. Speaker. Now, Nyamira County Assembly, we must ensure that we continue whipping them, and we must ensure that we continue guiding them, because I do not think that the problem is with the members of the County Assembly. The problem mostly resides in the county With the gets, they should first take their share before the members of the county assembly get the services that they deserve. For the period that we are tabling the report, Mr. Speaker, the operations of Nyamira County Assembly were not that bad. The report that we have is not terrible, but in the last 2 or 3 months, because my committee has been very current, we are now dealing with financial statements up to the financial year 2022, and in September we'll be getting to the reports for the financial year 2023. My committee will continue to engage with Nyamira so that whatever recommendations that we made to Nyamira County Assembly are followed and are not sabotaged, and the mandate and authority of the Senate is not undermined. Mr. Speaker, another county assembly whose report we have here is Narok County Assembly. Our experience with Narok has been quite progressive, Mr. Speaker. It is an assembly that listens whenever we make suggestions to them, and it is an assembly that I have seen works closely with their senator. At the end of the day, the role of the assembly and the role of the Senate, there are a lot of intersections. There are a lot of concurrent mandate, concurrent jurisdictions. And so, as I was saying, pointing out, for example, in the case of Nyamira, we want Nyamira Assembly to pull up. The senator has set such a high bar, and I want the Assembly to aspire to that bar. Mr. Speaker, another assembly that we have here is Marsabit County Assembly. And Marsabit County Assembly, Mr. Speaker, we also noticed certain weaknesses that in their financial management systems, but the bigger weakness was their lack of ability or capacity to oversight the county executive. Mr. Speaker, since I've spoken a lot on this matter on the 30th of April, let me just summarize 3 issues. There's the issue of the Society of Clerks at the table. Mr. Speaker, the clerks who are sitting at the table here, they belong to a society. And in the county assemblies, the clerks also belong to the Society of Clerks at the table. It is a body that is registered, so it is not illegal, but it receives money from county assemblies. But their accounts are not audited. Any public funds must be audited. And we have declared that contributions to SOCAT by county assembly are illegal and are a contravention of the PFM Act. However, we have given SOCAT an opportunity to come and engage the Senate. And so, Speaker, unfortunately, 2 appointments that we have been so generous, we have cleared our calendar to allow SOCAT to come before us. They are the ones who have turned down our invitation. The CAF, County Assemblies Forum, is also another body that we've been liaising with on matters to do with the welfare of members of county assembly. And Mr. Speaker, CAF is not illegal. It is registered as a society. So there's nothing wrong with it. The only problem is when county assemblies contribute 3 million shillings to CAF, and 3 by 47, Mr. Speaker, you can see is clearly a lot of money. And that money is not audited. We don't get financial statements. We have a problem with that. And we have said that county assemblies must stop contribution until issues and until the CAF accounts can be audited by the Auditor General. Again, the leadership of CAF is a speaker for Elgeyo Marakwet, Speaker Sebulei. I have repeatedly asked him to come before the Senate and told him that our committees are ready and willing to engage with them because members of county assemblies are our brothers and sisters. In fact, members of county assembly, 90% are persons of integrity, persons who are properly spirited, and persons who want good service delivery. What sometimes fails them is the leadership of the assembly, that entity that we put called the County Assembly Service Board. And sometimes they make decisions on contributions to CAF. And we have told Sebulei, we have told the speaker for Machakos, who's a vice chair, we have told several speakers and members of CAF, come and talk to the Senate. The Senate is ready, open, and willing to engage you. If you don't want to talk to the Public Accounts Committee, go and talk to the Devolution Committee, chaired by Senator Abbas. Because I know Senator Abbas has been working on some legislation that would give effect and power to the County Assemblies Forum and the Society of Clerks at the table. Unfortunately, they have not appeared before me. I don't know whether in Senator Abbas' committee they have made presentations, but until that matter is resolved, those contributions to SOCAT and CAF shall continue to be declared as illegal and irregular. Finally, this Senate has allowed assemblies to undertake capital projects. In Isiolo, we went to see a county assembly chamber that is being put up. Unfortunately, as I said, the speaker and the clerk and everybody else disappeared, and we only remained with the sergeant at arms, and so we could only stare, we could only spectate. When we went to Turkana, Mr. Speaker, you do recall, they were putting up a grand county assembly chamber. A number of counties, we have allowed them through the finance committee by revision of the ceilings to put up those projects. Project management by county assemblies is very poor, Mr. Speaker, because there's a lot of duplication. They want to do things, they want to bring in competencies that already exist in the county executive. And whenever we make those approvals for county assemblies to do capital projects, we need to guide them appropriately so that they don't waste too much time in duplication and redundant things that could have best been done by the county executive or through shared services of the county executive. Mr. Speaker, the reports before you contain specific recommendations that will be communicated to the entities once adopted by the House, but I want to assure the senators that the committee that we are in and where I am deputized ably by Senator Cherargei, we are closing the backlog. We are finalizing the reports for the election year, 2021-2022. And I want to assure this House that in September, we will be considering 2022-2023 for the time that the current governors are in office. And Mr. Speaker, you are a witness. You attended one of our meetings, and we are now able, for example, in the case of Meru, to close the years of Kiraitu Murungi so that we can now focus on the years of Governor Kawira Mwangaza. And I want to thank the senators who have attended our meetings for indulging us and for understanding the backlog that we've been in. That backlog has not been because of laziness, Mr. Speaker. Senator Khalwale, when he chaired this committee, for the first 2 years, he could not do anything because governors were going to court, left, right, and center. If Kidero wasn't going to court, then it was Oparanya going to court. If Oparanya wasn't going to court, it was Mwangi Wairia going to court. And for 2 years, Mr. Speaker, it was a fight. No one wanted to subject themselves to the Senate. And so we have gotten to a point where the Supreme Court has made its decision on the matter, and they have no choice. They have no choice. They must subject themselves to the Senate. And what we want to do is to tighten the sanctions, Mr. Speaker. And if John Mbadi, the ODM chairman, becomes the CS for Treasury, Mr. Speaker, one of the first things we'll be asking John Mbadi to do is to invoke Article 225 of the Constitution and stop the transfer of funds to counties with serious financial problems. Because there is no need for us to pour money down a bottomless pit. And we'll be supporting the motion by Senator Dulo. But the Constitution puts that power in the hands of the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. CS Ukuri Atani tried to invoke it, but we frustrated it. CS Professor Njuguna Ndongo had no clue of what was going on. In fact, he never appeared before any of our committees. And so we hope that CS John Mbadi, hopefully, inshallah, will be a CS who listens to the Senate, will be a CS who is responsive to the needs of his colleagues, the politicians that he served with over the years. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the distinguished senator from Nandi, none other than Senator Cherargei, to second and advise him that while he seconds, he should refrain himself from talking about the other members of the cabinet. Mr. Speaker, I beg to...
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that commitment to bring your accounts to the current governors. I think that is very good to the Senate. We want to not to flog which are ambiguous. So thank you very much for that commitment. As the chairperson, we will be very happy to have the current accounts for the current governors being prosecuted. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, as I rise to second, I want to indicate to my chairperson that there is no cabinet in place except a few people who are the moment cabinet. I thought they are still undergoing vetting. but I'm happy with the enthusiasm of my brother who is an ODM member because they're excited being part of the cabinet in the history. And that shows the intention of everybody wanting to join government. So Speaker, as I rise to second, let me make the following observations. County assemblies, Mr. Speaker, sir, essentially are the primary oversight. But unfortunately, some county assemblies and MCAs continue to be gatekeepers of ineffective, moribund, and inefficient county executives across our nation, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm saying this with a backdrop that I want to send my special accolades to Wajir County Assembly for refusing to become Wajir County Executive rubber stamp of passing a budget that do not reflect the wishes of the people of Wajir. So, Speaker, while I don't condone that they went to an extent of running away with the mess, I agree with the principle of not allowing to pass a budget where allocation, you know, first the office of the First Lady and Second Lady and PCS offices of the ladies have been scrapped. So I want to agree with members of County Assembly of Wajir County Assembly, and we want to see them becoming more enthusiastic, doing their job without fear on contradiction, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say let all the MCAs, county assemblies be proactive in budget-making processes going into the future. It is their work under County Governments Act, under the Constitution, and therefore we hope to see MCAs taking their rightful place in ensuring oversight. Because many things, including yours of Garissa, would not have escalated to the Senate if the MCAs had done their job. So we, as much as we support them, we must also call upon them, Mr. Speaker, to do their job as per the Constitution, as per the devolution laws that have been set in place, so that we get a more value. And you know, Mr. Speaker, the advent of JNC protest has brought some level of self-reflection, including county governments and national governments, Mr. Speaker. So I hope after all these issues that have been raised nationally are being resolved, we want also to see county governments doing their job, giving value for the money that we appropriate under the Constitution and under, as we even push, and the new CS nominee should be aware of Article 219 to ensure money is dispersed or on in time to county governments so that when we hold them accountable, Mr. Speaker, it becomes easy, Mr. Speaker. I know the challenge is, Mr. Speaker, as I go to the second substrata, is that MCAs might argue that their welfare is not taken care of. But we have done our best through the SRC. We have tried to push SRC to improve on the welfare of the MCAs, Mr. Speaker, so that they get enough resources and their own personal resources to go into the support of ensuring they do oversight, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, I'm happy also that for the first time there is goodwill of financial autonomy for the MCAs, so that the clerk of the county assembly, and those are some of the recommendations, legislative intervention as a committee through the chairperson of our committee to ensure we have financial autonomy to counties, so that the clerk have their own CRF account at the National Treasury and be able to sign their money for the expenses within the county assembly. The way Parliament of Kenya is done, our accounting officers are known, Mr. Speaker. Although here it reached some point where some funny officers were being introduced and given some funds, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Abbas? Sheikh.
I think I want to inform the Honourable Member, Honourable Sergei, that what is going on in Wajir actually is actually not all the Assembly actually is in agreement with the whole process. As much as we appreciate that at least the oversight, a organism, because breaking even their own shares, that the way they work from, the desk that they work from is where they're even breaking it. So, but of course they are asking for accountability and asking for a proper itemized budget. We'll commend them for that, but of course it's not the way they are behaving is not acceptable behavior that we'll be able to encourage for those members to do that kind of business, as you know, legislative elected members of MCS. Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Abbas. Senator Cheruge.
Mr. Speaker, I think I said very categorically, and you can check my answer. I say I support accountability, but I don't support them running away with the mess. I think it is important so that we put perspective, and they should do it with vigor and enthusiasm, Mr. Speaker. I hope in the course of today's sitting or tomorrow, Senator Abbas, who is the Senator of Wajir will give us a personal or a statement so that he can put to perspective as understanding order 52 or 53 to tell us what really transpired. Because while we agree there is no need of breaking chairs and other things within the assembly, he should be able to give us that perspective going into the future. So Speaker, the general, and therefore I was talking about financial autonomy. I think that is the last limb that I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker. Let county assemblies be given financial autonomy so that they have CRF. We get the clerk to become the accounting officer. Mr. Speaker, we are aware where governors decline to release money to county assemblies through CCM finance simply because they think MCS have undermined or they have not done public relations exercise. Mr. Speaker, it's so sad. Whenever I work to my functions in counties, the person who does more public relation officer, the people they are not to become cheerleaders, and you get MCAs telling us more what the governor is doing than what governor is doing and what governor should be saying they are doing. I don't know, in my county that is a situation. Maybe in Machakos or in Nyamira the story is totally different. But in silent tones, the MCAs have been telling us the reason we do this is so that we don't get denied of our location by CCM finance of respective county. So when we give financial autonomy to MCAs, I think now they'll be able to oversight. And you know the history of this parliament that before our accounts were with the office of the president. Therefore, it means if you criticize the government, you could not get your pay. So, Speaker, even here in Parliament, we want to mirror what you are doing in Parliament to county assemblies. Although, constitutionally, I have seen in Parliament, and maybe the Commissioner will say in his presentation later, if he will contribute, is that we have had a situation where the Secretary to Parliamentary Service Commission has been watered down. There is an office called Chief Accounting Officer or Accounting Officer somewhere in between the provided under the Secretary of the Senate, Bwana Jeremiah Nyegenya, Mr. Speaker. And that undermining, that person has more money. And I'll be bringing a substantive statement. Where did that office create? Yet the Secretary to the Parliamentary Service Commission is the clerk of the Senate. But some cartels or some individuals who are hell-bent to undermine the work of the Senate made sure they introduce another extra officer in between the accounting officer who should be the secretary to the commission, Bwana Jeremiah Nyegenya, Mr. Speaker. And as a parliament, we must take a position on it. And I want to challenge our commission representative. I asked them sometimes back, Mr. Speaker, and they told us that, you know, we are few in Parliamentary Service Commission. But you should bring it back to the people. Go back to the people. They should bring it back to Parliament. When we raised issues about the functionality, our capacity, Mr. Speaker of Parliament, some of us were told to write some silent letters and whisper to powers be that we have a problem with the lift, we have a problem with the aeration in our rooms. Mr. Speaker, our room, committee room number 8, in the new wing, our chairman normally struggles to breathe because there is totally no aeration in the room, Mr. Speaker. Our visitors, and you have visited, sir, we were together with you in Health Committee. You saw the visitors or our witnesses crammed up in a corner, Mr. Speaker. If, God forbid, if COVID was to come back, Mr. Speaker, with the small spaces that we are talking about, it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. You saw the invasion of Parliament the other I'm told they have used close to 100 million to do the repairs. But when you see the quality works of the seats, I highly doubt. I sat on one seat in the restaurant, Mr. Speaker. I almost collapsed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and that you should be putting a perimeter wall.
Senator Cherargei, would you want to be informed by Senator Mugeni?
No, I am sufficiently informed. I am sufficiently informed. If you ask me about the committee room number 8 used by SIPAC, I know it because I have used it. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, what is your point of order, Senator Mugeni?
Mr. Speaker, any senator speaking before the House should be able to support the facts that he lays before this House. Senator Cherargei has stated that the Parliamentary Service Commission has spent 200 million to repair the damage that was caused by the Gen Z invasion of June 26th. Whereas, Mr. Speaker, Parliament is fully insured. It's Old Mutual that will undertake the repairs. So can he substantiate which Parliamentary Service Commission has spent the 200 million shillings to undertake repairs?
Senator Mugoni, just to correct you, the figure he mentioned was 100 million.
Oh, he didn't say 200.
Not 200, 100 million.
So can he substantiate where he got the information that PS is undertaking the repairs? Yet we have a comprehensive insurance cover that passes that obligation to all mutual insurers. So can he substantiate the allegation that PAC has spent 100 million to undertake the
Senator Cherargei, can you substantiate or withdraw and go by the information provided by the Commissioner, Senior Counsel Mugeni?
Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate the enthusiasm of response of the Commissioner, Mr. Speaker, I need up to Tuesday so that I can provide. Not necessarily. I said, Mr. Speaker, the supervising body is Parliamentary Service Commission. The people who procured Old Mutual to provide insurance cover is the PSC. So, Mr. Speaker, let me finish kindly.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
I'm willing to substantiate by Tuesday and provide necessary facts because Old Mutual, as insurance, did not provide all the insurance cover. Because in the insurance policy of Old Mutual, it does not include attacks by GNC and protest. So, Senator, can I substantiate on Tuesday?
Yes, you can substantiate, but just to get, yes, that is what I wanted to clarify with you, that you would substantiate the amount of 100 million spent by PSC on refurbishment of Parliament following the destruction by the demonstrators.
No, Mr. Speaker, I have not said the PSC spent. I'll provide information on the issue of repairs. And you will notice in my information that some of the repairs was incurred by the PSC themselves, Mr. Speaker.
So what you'll substantiate is the sum of the repairs done by PSC amounted to 100 million.
Including the insurance Old Mutual, plus their policy document that they don't cover destruction of protests.
Very well, Senator. Please provide that information by Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I was just explaining that we need to mirror what Parliament does because county assemblies are our small brothers and sisters, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so the issue of MCS, Mr. Speaker, we support them. The issue of salary review, personal emoluments, we want to assure that we shall push and ensure SRC. Mr. Speaker, you remember the President had held a meeting with all the MCS. So I hope SRC, I don't know, the chairperson of devolution, and one member, I think Senator Kalwale is here, is a member of Finance and Budget Committee. I don't know what they will do with SRC to table the recommendations that they have done on the issue of SRC salaries review and remuneration. We are not pushing that they should be increment, but they should be given capacity. Even ward officers, Mr. Speaker, as we are given liaison officers at counties. We need them, the emoluments, the issue of moving, the issue to do oversight, Mr. Speaker. And I was sad when I saw Nyamira, I chaired, and one of the part of the Nyamira County Assembly chambers. And you know, Senator Okongo Mugeni should be nice to me because I ensured that when the chambers of Nyamira County Assembly collapsed, I have directed that through the Committee Public Works must rule, or even EACC to swing into action to ensure accountability. Mr. Speaker, the challenges counties are facing is budget performance, but this is attributed largely to delayed disbursement by the National Treasury. So we request the new CS of National Treasury to release money. The issue of interest, Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure there is proper surrender, but they are surrendering after time without interest, as per the PMF Act. The issue of ethnic composition, you find that most of the county assemblies are the conclaves, ethnic conclaves that must be relooked at. And therefore, we demand that NCIC and the county assemblies respectively should look at the composition of ethnic staff establishment, third basic salary rule, and MCA should be told that you don't take your salary, all of it. You must obey a third principle in basic salary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of county assembly and speaker's residence, Mr. Speaker, the limit has been indicated. Let's obey to that, Mr. Speaker. The issue of bending rules, and the chair has directed that county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, should abide by the resolutions, Mr. Speaker, resolutions of the issue of pending bills. So we have transmitted as a Senate that pending bills must be sought out as soon as possible, or will we Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to advise the Council of Governors, County Assemblies Forum, and the table of clerks of the county assemblies to come up with a proposal to anchor them to law. The more they spend the resources, the money that are allocated to spend on something that has not been provided through the legal authority is illegal, unconstitutional, and immoral. And going into the future as a committee, we shall be referring this expenditure to EACC so that various officers can be surcharged and charged in court of law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the late submission of documentation, we have noticed county assemblies have this documentation, but they continue to violate Section 65 of the Public Audit Act that recommends that any entity on the period of audit, that circle that the OAG goes, Mr. Speaker, should be given documents in time. So, Speaker, as we review the budget, I want to ask the people who allocate budget, especially us and the National Assembly, to give more resources to Office of the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, if Auditor General was not functioning, and the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, and I want to say this, and you will add me a minute, is that we need to resource OAG to visit projects. Mr. Speaker, what we are getting as a committee are narratives about Garissa, about Nandi, about Kakamega. We need to empower OAG to go to Nyamira and look at the county assembly of Nyamira with the public works and give us the, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I'm proposing as the chair, your colleague, the Speaker, is the chair of Liaison. We need even Public Accounts Committee and PIC to be given more resources to do county visits. Because when we went to Isiolo, we are yet to visit Kakamega. Other counties, we make more impact because we are able to look at it, Mr. Speaker. When the governor of Marsabit appeared, there was an issue of a building issue. Was it the issue of fish or something was said? He was telling us that it has been submerged by water. So how can we verify? We need as the county the committee to go and visit and look at it. When you come to Nandi, the governor, when it is in public accounts, he says new mother and baby unit of Kapsabet is complete. But I pass there every day. But if today the Public Accounts Committee was to visit Nyamira, to visit Nandi, to visit Kakamega, to visit Karisa, and we look at the projects one by one, Mr. Speaker, we will not be entertaining such narratives, Mr. Speaker. I want to encourage the House to take a decisive action. Mr. Speaker, going into the future, I just had 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, 1 minute to conclude.
Yes. And that is why I'm pushing, Mr. Speaker, let us give more funds to public accounts. Let us go to Turkana, Mr. Speaker. Turkana is a hardship area. 110 billion cannot be accounted for 10 years. Yet there is hunger in Turkana. There is insufficient water in Turkana. Irrigation projects have collapsed, Mr. Speaker. Somebody sank 200 million to build a governor's residence that does not exist. 1.5 billion was built in a headquarters, Mr. Speaker. 82 million was given to AC that is not functional. 6.5 million was made into a generator that does not exist, Mr. Speaker. And the EACC are doing nothing about it. The culprit is walking around, is in the protected area, Mr. Speaker. So we must, as a House, take a position, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would go and on and become emotional because I feel bad, just like the senators, because we fight here to allocate money to counties, but we don't see value for that money. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks to allow my colleagues, I beg to second and I thank you.
Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Select Committee on County Public Accounts on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of West Pokot County Assembly for the financial year 2018-2019 and reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Isiolo, Kiambu, Kitui, Marsabit, Narok, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Muranga County Assemblies for the financial year 2019-2020 laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 7th March 2024. Honorable Senators, you will now be making your contribution. We'll start with Senator Boni Kalwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the importance of this particular report is such that I was expecting the entire House to be here. We are talking about the mother of oversight. There can be no oversight without the Public Accounts Committee, without the Public Investments Committee. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, using very strong words, I want to congratulate this committee for this commendable report. Mr. Speaker, the work that this committee is doing is so sensitive and so attractive to the public that about the work of this committee. And Senator Kajwang, as I congratulate the entire team, I also have personal congratulations for you. You are not only doing a good job in this House, but you're also doing a good job in the committee, and it looks like doing a good job is the other name of leadership in Homa Bay. Yes, I know all governors have got challenges, but when a governor makes an effort, we must accept. Governor Gladys Wanga, just like her senator, she's also put her best foot forward. Mr. Speaker, a comment by the chair of this committee captured me, I think, a few days ago in respect of a house in Mandera. He told me that he came across a house, a residential house, that had been built for 285 million shillings. I have tried to imagine how, I don't know, was it 12 bedrooms, 20 bedrooms, 58 bedrooms? That house of 285 million shillings. I really want to find time to go and read the entire report on that house, because we must not allow this kind of wastage of public resources that a governor can spend 285 million shillings on building a house. 285 million shillings can actually build a hospital, 60 to 80 bed hospital you can construct using that kind of money. Mr. Speaker, it is sad, but that is for another day. Having said that, Chair, allow me to comment on the adoption of this report. It has got my eye that the adoption of the report did not attract the signature of Senator Edwin Sifuna, Senator Omar Mariam, Senator Richard Onyonga, and Senator Samson Cherargei. Why? Were they descending? And if they were descending, where is the reason why they descended? We want to encourage members of committees to attend committees and be part of the deliberation of those committees. And if they have no time, Mr. Speaker, I'm not casting any aspersions. Let them give room for other members who will have time for such an important.
Senator Boni Kalwale, would you want to be informed by Senator Cherargei?
I was going to refuse, but when I looked at his age, being a young man, I said, he's very close to the Gen Z. I better be informed here rather than on the streets.
Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, you know, my Senator Kalwale is a very senior person, and I cautiously inform him because he's a man full of wisdom by saying in our committee, through the guidance of the chair, we normally use subcommittees to chair, especially county assembly. So you might find the colleagues who have not signed this report were in another subcommittee because we are 3-3, and most he appoints another person to chair another county assembly. I chair some of the county assembly. So I request for you the indulgence, but maybe with this guidance and the standing orders, you should be able to advise us when you don't sit in that subcommittee what happens during the adoption. I thank you, Chair.
Very well.
Mr. Speaker, that is a housekeeping issue, which I will leave to the chairman to manage. But as far as the House is concerned, this is the report. This is not the report of a subcommittee, and therefore I would have wanted to know the reason why the other members didn't sign if they were having a dissenting view. Allow me bragging rights, Mr. Chairman of the committee. You have had very good words for the County Assembly of Kakamega, and like you, I want to congratulate the chair, Kelvin Mahelo, the MCA of Chakula Butali, for being a very good chair for this committee in Kakamega. He had started getting lost, Mr. Chairman. You remember my conversation with you. And I quickly called him and I told him that is not the way to go. He asked me, what are you talking about? I told him, even if you don't have the capacity or you have not reflected on the meaning of oversight of the Senate, at least go to the ruling and respect the ruling of the Supreme Court, which pronounced itself that this work must be done by the Senate. Mr. Speaker, there is something that we can learn from each other. It is not by chance that the County Assembly of Kakamega is doing this work. Mr. Chairman, I deliberately addressed the County Assembly of Kakamega and emphasized the role of oversight when I addressed the Assembly. And what's more, I created 12 breakout committee meetings in my home in Malinya, where I was reserving up to 4 to 6 hours with MCS from every constituency. I have got 12 constituencies, and during this time, I was emphasizing to them the importance of oversight vis-a-vis the risk of sycophancy. And I'm glad that they have taken. Going to the substantive issues raised, Mr. Speaker, I am very impressed that the committee has been thorough, and in particular, when I look at the actual issues, Mr. Speaker, I noticed that the committee was able to flag out the important issue of spending money on items that don't exist in the budget. And you raised, committee members, the issue of unbudgeted for payments, where you found that 1 million shillings had been given to the council, the county assembly forum, and that $500,000 had been given to the clerks at the table. That you have recommended that these people be surcharged demonstrates the seriousness of this exercise. The public is not going to lose these 1.5 million shillings. The 1.5 million is going to be recovered through surcharge. Mr. Speaker, I also notice on specific issues that the committee went and focused on cash flows from operating activities. You put these county assemblies to task, and I'm happy that, Mr. Speaker, the matter was resolved. Then comes the issue of pending bills. Mr. Speaker, whereas this matter of pending bills was resolved, we need during this debate to remind county assemblies that pending bills should never exist because of the structure of the PFM Act. The PFM Act is grafted in such a manner that you can only give out a tender for a project that you already have a budget. So, if you have given out a tender to a project you have a budget, it means at the end of the project, the budget will simply be expended on paying the contractors. There should never be a pending bill. The fact that there are pending bills in these county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, means that money which was budgeted for particular projects and programs is then diverted that were never put in the budget. We must sound this to accounting officers in the county assemblies. Secondly, it is not a question of my region. It is not a question of my community. It is not a question of my county. We must encourage accounting officers to from those counties. Not because of denying to participate, that if we are talking Mr. Speaker, then at the end of the contract, the project is complete, it remains in Homa Bay. And if the contractor was from Homa Bay, when you pay him, the money remains in Homa Bay. The risk of allowing these millions of shillings to be given contractors from outside Homa Bay, outside Kakamega, outside Turkana, is that the money leaves the CRF account to the contractor, and that day or the following day, it leaves the county of Homa Bay, county of Turkana, county of Kakamega, and migrates to go to where the contractor was coming from. So it does not circulate in the economy of the local county, and therefore there's capital flight. Look, if you pay this man who has built a market in Khaega, and the man comes from Kakamega, this guy makes a profit of 30 million shillings. Mr. Speaker, this guy, even if he ends up building a house for himself in his home, the local contractors of that home will be from that home, and the money will circulate in that place. Those contractors will pay school fees for their children. That money will be in that county. We must discourage, because there are contracts going on in all the 47 counties. Mr. Speaker, the committee has spoken to the issue of incomplete fixed asset register. I allowed you, and I'm glad that you have remained hawk-eyed. You flagged it out, although it was resolved. And
would you want to be informed by Senator Kejwang?
yes, I would like him to inform me, especially in view of the accolades that I gave him at the beginning of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to inform the Senator on that point, and actually the House, that Narok County Assembly has managed to secure a title deed for the land on which the assembly sits. And the rest of the county assemblies are still struggling with it. And that's part of the asset management. And that's why it's going to be a query in all the county assemblies. And I want to encourage each individual senator to help the county assembly to acquire a title deed to the land on which the assemblies sit, because they are not supposed to be squatters on county executive land. In some counties, you find that they're squatters on national government land, and I encourage assemblies to look at what Narok did. They are landlords, they have the title deed in the name of County Assembly of Narok, and I know Senator Bass is still dealing with the issue of transfer of assets and liabilities. So I just wanted to inform the governor from the context of assets that even Kakamega County Assembly needs to have its title deed.
Senator Kajang, are you informing the governor or the Senate of Kakamega?
Is being...
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Governor shall be 2027. For now, Senator.
Thank you. Speaker, be so informed. He has informed you after informing me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having congratulated the committee for flagging out the issue and resolving the issue of fixed assets, there's something I want to say about fixed assets. Chair, try and put further pressure to the leadership of our county assemblies. We want to see the fixed asset called the debate chamber in all our 47 counties. If you go to Kilifi, for example, if you go to Mandera County, for example, and quite a number of other counties, they have put up modern debate chambers, a good fixed asset. But there is no justification. Why, despite having these billions of shillings, county assemblies in certain counties have not constructed chambers? Mr. Speaker, it's very annoying that in the county assembly of Kakamega, there is no fixed asset called the debate chamber. If you were to visit the chair, you would be shocked. The building where they are debating from is the same building that was constructed in 1930s by the colonials when they were practicing governance in Kakamega. It's a ramshackle, it's a useless thing. We must put pressure to ensure that they construct a modern chamber. Mr. Speaker, there are other matters that were also flagged out by the committee, including budget control and performance, and I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, that these issues have been resolved. Having spoken to these issues, I want to conclude by speaking to only two other issues. The Office of the Auditor General. We should never fail to congratulate them, because without them, we can team that gives us the quality reports that we use to put these governors and speakers and clerks to account. And there should be no excuses, because today the Office of the Auditor General is properly resourced. They have even put up regional hubs, and we expect them to work. If their problem is because of devolution, they have a challenge of staff, they must come to us as Parliament so that we give them more money, because without these audit reports, governance can never succeed. Finally, but not least, the ESCC. ESCC time has now come. The Public Accounts Committee has been sending you reports, asking you to take actions, and we have seen nothing. Not start pretending that you want to supervise how we do legislation here. Even telling and misleading the country that we were involved in a piece of legislation here that watered down the oversight role or watered down your work. A lie. Total lies. We expect the EACC to work. And EACC, if you don't work, if you choose to engage in running after the distinguished Senator of Marsabit, if you have problems with the Senator of Marsabit, don't call the media. That is a channel that you use as EACC. EACC does not conduct its business through the media. It should have been the media reporting that you have been found either at the office of the Senator of Marsabit or at his home. You have found he has stolen money and you are dealing with him. But for you to call a press conference and start catwalking, no. EACC is not the intentions of Chapter 15 commissions in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. It is this careless approach by heads of certain institutions to conduct himself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Are you please 1 minute?
Yes.
One minute to conclude.
Thank you,
Senator.
Mr. Speaker. It is also this poor conduct by heads of institutions that cause confusion. The youth think they should come and storm this parliament. If anybody had properly guided our youth, Mr. Speaker, the youth, if they had chosen to storm this parliament, they would not have come to the Senate. Almost cost us lose this house, goes to the National Assembly. So they should have gone to the National Assembly. In fact, I want them to put pressure under the National Assembly. If the Gen Z should come back again, Gen Z, please go to the National Assembly. Don't come to this Senate. In fact, thanks to this Senate, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to get a compromise position that...
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mogeni, Eric.
Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by thanking the mover of this motion, son of Rose Auma Ajuang, and Mr. David Ajuang Nyakwamba of Oma. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, if you are one of the senators who normally appears before the committee or led by Senator of Homa Bay, Senator Kajwang, you will always feel the joy that Senator Kajwang is the chair of that committee because of the understanding of the issues, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank Senator Kajwang for the good work he has done for us as senators, as chair of a Public Accounts Committee. Mr. Speaker, if you didn't know, most governors normally send inquiries to know who will be chairing. Is it Senator Kajwang or there will be somebody else? If they confirm it's Senator Kajwang, they try to prepare because they know he has a good grasp and understanding of the issues. Senator Kajwang, we are proud of good work you are doing and the effort you have put in place to ensure that there is accountability from our governors. Mr. Speaker, it's also under his watch that we were able to incorporate an officer, I hope I'm right there, from EACC to sit through the sittings of Senator Kajwang's committee so that EACC can get first-hand the wanton thefts that take place at counties. That was innovative, and we really thank you, Senator Kajwang. And he's also a very good-hearted person, Senator Kajwang. Mr. Speaker, I was bereaved sometimes last year in my ward of Bosamaro, Mr. Speaker. And I was surprised, Mr. Speaker, during the funeral to see Senator of Homa Bay walk in to come and bereave with the Mogeni family. I had lost my uncle, Mzee Auka Mogeni, father of Dr. Evans Omwangarita, and Senator Kajuang attended the funeral to bereave with us. So at a personal level, he's also a very kind-hearted person. So we are glad to have you as our senator, and we really the report of Homa Bay, of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring it to the attention of the House, Mr. Speaker, that all the issues that were raised by the Auditor General remain unresolved, sadly, Mr. Speaker. The county headquarters that remained incomplete when these reports were issued by the remain incomplete up to now. Mr. Speaker, I speak with a heavy heart because the Assembly of Nyamira appeared before the committee that is led by Senator Kajuang. It was a debacle, Mr. Speaker. It was like a comedy, Mr. Speaker. The information that was tendered through a report that was signed by the County Public Service Board that indicated that they had made payments to the tune of 150 million did not get the concurrence of the accounting officer, the clerk of the County Assembly of Nyamira. And it raised doubts, Mr. Speaker, as to whether somebody in the County Assembly has embezzled over 40 million shillings. Because the accounting officer, the clerk of the County Assembly of Nyamira, was categorical that he could not confirm that that payment was made to the contractor, Mr. Speaker. And it is regrettable, Mr. Speaker, that after the committee directed that the County Public Service Board should ensure that he gets back his role as accounting officer, he was instead, Mr. Speaker, suspended by the County Public Service Board. You can see the level of impunity, Mr. Speaker, that is cropping up in this country, Mr. Speaker. And that's happening after the issues have come to the fore. Recommendations have been made by the committee chaired by Senator Kajuang that EACC should move in, do investigations, and arrest the culprit. And I'm sorry to say, Mr. Speaker, that instead of EACC, parading Senator Chute in their offices, how I wish they could go for a case like this, Mr. Speaker, where clearly public money to the tune of 40 million shillings have been lost, Mr. Speaker. And the accounting officer has appeared before the Senate of the Republic of Kenya and confirmed that they cannot account how that money has been spent, Mr. Speaker. I have worked in that body called EACC. I know the CEO, Mr. Speaker. I want to plead with him, Mr. Speaker, to take issues that are raised by the Senate of the Republic of Kenya seriously, to take issues that are raised by the Auditor General seriously, Mr. Speaker, to take serious issues that are raised by the Controller of Budget, Mr. Speaker. I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that the members of a committee that is led by Senator Kajuang don't manufacture the auditor reports, the reports that come from the Auditor General. That is a public office that has got... From all these counties that are listed, Kitui, Marsabit, Narok, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Murang'a, I don't think the Auditor General has any personal interest in these counties other than discharging the institution on looking
#1 seed Iga Świątek of Poland appeared in her second-round match in women's singles at Roland Garros. Her opponent, Diane Paris of France. Świątek has won 4 of the last 5 French Opens, in part because of versatility like this. Paris tried for the lob, but Świątek with a backhand volley, and she made that look easy. Paris showed a nice touch here. Drop shot drew Świątek to the net. Paris then found the corner for a winner. But Świątek had little trouble taking this set and did so by 6 games to 1. The second set also went with form. And at match point, the 5-time Grand Slam champion is clearly a gold medal contender here at Paris 2024. She advanced 6-1, 6-1. 20-year-old Coco Gauff of United States of America, already a 2-time Grand Slam champion, drew Maria Lourdes Carle of Argentina in a second-round women's match. In the first set, Gauff, with a textbook drop shot and then lob, moves the opponent to the net, then hits high over her head, and Gauff jumped out to an early lead. This was set point. Carle's return went long. Gauff took the first set, 6-1. The world #2 continued to dominate. Match point, and Carle was beaten 6-1, 6-1. Gauff moved on to the third round.
The men's cross-country mountain bike was staged at Elancourt Hill, a fearsome 231-metre high test for any rider. 36 athletes competed for the gold medal, their ability and endurance tested to the limit. Early on, the riders were closely bunched together. Pidcock and Koretsky were among the leaders. At any time, a problem with a bike could cost a rider their chance of a medal. 2 laps down, 6 to go. Pidcock and Koretsky were in the front 4. There was no gap between them and the riders behind. When Pidcock made his move, only Koretsky